The wedding was scheduled for exactly 4 o'clock, and the sun outside the massive Carrington estate had just begun to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden hue across the garden where hundreds of white chairs sat untouched. Everything had been planned to perfection, of course. Nothing less would be acceptable when the bride was the infamous Callista Carrington, media mogul, tech empress, and the coldest billionaire Manhattan had ever produced. Her name alone moved stocks. Her silence could destroy careers. No one knew why she'd agreed to such a rushed, secretive wedding, especially to a woman no one had ever heard of. The tabloids were burning with speculation, but the truth was, no one had seen the bride. Not even Callista. Until now. Inside the mansion, the temperature felt several degrees colder than outside, though that had less to do with the air conditioning and more with the woman descending the staircase with military precision. Callista Carrington's heels clicked like gunfire against the marble steps. Tall, poised, draped in a tailored black suit instead of a dress, she looked every inch the woman who had conquered her world alone. Her hair was pulled into a sharp, controlled twist at her nape. Her lips were bloodless. Her eyes? Icy, focused, calculating. But for the first time in 20 years, her hands were trembling. Not visibly. God forbid anyone saw Callista Carrington show weakness, but internally, her pulse betrayed her. Her assistant, Miles, whispered something about press protocol, about the judge arriving early, about the imported orchids in the wrong spot. She didn't hear a word. Her mind had split open the moment she heard the bride's name on the paperwork yesterday. Selene Vega. And that couldn't be possible. Selene Vega was gone. Disappeared without a trace from Callista's life 15 years ago, leaving only silence and a trail of questions that had never stopped burning. Callista had tried to convince herself it was a coincidence. A different Selene. A common enough name, perhaps. She hadn't even looked at the photo in the file. Wouldn't. Not until today. The ceremony was unorthodox. No guests. No family. Just a legal arrangement between Callista Carrington and the bride no one wanted. That was how Miles had referred to her in hushed tones, as if she were a ghost in a pretty dress. An orphan. No assets. No connections. A legal merger, nothing more. You don't even need to talk to her, Miles had said. Sign the paperwork. Take the photos. Get it done. But now, standing at the edge of the garden path with her breath locked in her throat, Callista felt the world slow, because the woman waiting at the altar, in a simple but devastatingly elegant gown of ivory satin, wasn't a stranger. It was her. It was Selene. Selene, with the same midnight eyes Callista used to fall into during high school debate tournaments. Selene, with the scar above her brow, older now, softened, but unmistakable. Selene, whose touch once meant everything, whose absence had left Callista broken in places no one ever got to see. Selene, who was supposed to be dead to her. Callista froze. Literally couldn't move. Her lungs refused to expand. Her thoughts shattered. The cold, ruthless woman who had built an empire from nothing, who had taken heartbreak and turned it into ice, stood paralyzed in front of the one ghost she had never managed to bury. Selene turned, and she smiled. Not shy, not sad, but calm, controlled. Almost like she knew exactly what Callista was thinking. Almost like she'd planned it. Callista wanted to scream, to walk away, to demand answers. But the judge was speaking now. Miles nudged her forward. Cameras clicked, and Callista walked like she was sleepwalking, until she was standing inches away from the woman she had loved, had lost, had never stopped hating for leaving. The judge asked the standard question. Do you, Callista Emery Carrington, take this woman? I do, she said automatically, voice clipped cold. Do you, Selene Aurora Vega? I do. The rings were placed. The papers were signed. A kiss wasn't required. Thank God. They turned to the camera for a final photo. Callista didn't look at Selene. Couldn't. But Selene? She never looked away. And when the judge declared them married, Callista realized something bone deep. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a reckoning. And Selene was here for war. Or revenge. Or something far more dangerous. Because Callista didn't believe in fate. But she believed in unfinished business. And Selene Vega had just become her wife. Callista didn't speak a single word as the judge walked away, as the camera crews lowered their lenses, as Miles handed her a glass of champagne with shaking fingers and a strained congratulations. She didn't speak when Selene stepped slightly closer for the final photo, placing a careful hand on her arm as if the gesture meant nothing, like it hadn't once meant everything. Callista stood still, jaw tight, spine locked, and let it happen. The flash went off. The moment was captured. Billionaire marries mystery woman. Headlines were already forming in someone's newsroom. But the real story hadn't begun yet. It was happening now, under her skin, in her veins, in the way her heart wouldn't regulate. She felt it like a scream held in the chest. Selene still hadn't said a word. Not one. And that silence was louder than anything. "Your car is waiting," Miles murmured at her side, his voice delicate, unsure. "We arranged for you and your wife to be escorted to the penthouse. There's champagne. Dinner." A pause. Privacy. That word hit harder than the rest. Privacy. Alone with her. Selene Vega. Her wife. The woman she hadn't seen in 15 years. The woman she had mourned and hated and dreamed about until her rage calcified into ambition. "Fine," Callista said flatly, and turned to walk without waiting for Selene to follow. But of course, she did. Quiet as a shadow, smooth as silk. Her heels didn't make a sound on the stone. Callista didn't look back. Not until the car door clicked shut beside her, and they were enclosed in a silence thick enough to drown in. The car began to move. The divider went up. Selene was sitting across from her now, legs crossed beneath layers of satin, hands folded like she was attending a tea party. Her eyes hadn't changed. That infuriating calm. That cool darkness. That knowing. Callista hated that she still knew those eyes better than she knew her own reflection. "So," Selene said softly. One word, and Callista's chest cracked open. "So," Callista echoed, voice sharp, acidic. "You planned this. Define this. Don't play with me." "I'm not." Selene's gaze didn't waver. "I received a letter. A legal arrangement. A contract with a name I didn't expect. I accepted." "You accepted without seeing who you were marrying? Did you?" Silence. Callista's fists clenched in her lap. "What do you want, Selene? That's a dangerous question to ask your wife on your wedding day." "Don't." Callista stopped herself, but the fury burned up her throat like bile. "You left me. You disappeared. 15 years of silence, and now you show up in a dress and say yes to a contract you weren't supposed to be part of." "I didn't say yes to the contract." Selene's voice was too calm. "I said yes to you." Callista flinched like the words had struck her across the face. "You don't get to say that." "Why not?" "Because you're a liar." Selene tilted her head. "Have I lied yet?" "You lied by omission. You didn't ask me anything. I didn't think I needed to." Callista snapped. "You were gone. You left. I had to bury you in my mind just to move forward." "Did you?" Selene's voice dropped lower, almost intimate. "Move forward." Callista looked away. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. She hated how her body still remembered Selene's voice like a melody. Hated how every nerve in her skin was awake now, alert, alive. "You have 5 seconds to explain why you're really here." 5 seconds isn't nearly enough for that kind of answer. "Try." Selene leaned slightly forward, just enough to make the air change between them. "I'm here because I never stopped thinking about you. Because when the contract came, I knew it wasn't an accident. And because something told me you wouldn't walk away. You don't know me anymore." "I know enough." "No, you don't. You're still wearing black at your own wedding. You didn't bring family. You didn't smile once. You said, 'I do,' like it tasted like blood." Callista's heart pounded. "And you," she countered. "You wore white like you're innocent. You smiled like you know something I don't. And you walked into this marriage like it's a game." Selene's eyes flickered. "It's not a game, Callista." "Then what is it?" "It's a beginning." The car slowed. The penthouse loomed outside, all glass and shadow. Miles opened the door. Celine stepped out first, her dress catching the light. Callista followed, her chest tight, her expression unreadable. The elevator ride was silent. Tense. When they stepped into the suite, Celine moved first, unbuttoning the back of her gown slowly, like it meant nothing, like it wasn't pulling Callista's sanity apart thread by thread. Stop. Callista's voice was barely audible. Celine turned, still calm. You want answers? Callista nodded once. Then listen closely, Celine said. This marriage may be legal, but it's not simple. You think I'm here for revenge. You think I'm playing some long game. But I'm not. I'm here because you're the only unfinished part of my life. Callista didn't breathe. Couldn't. You think you buried me, Celine whispered. But I never left. You just stopped looking. Then she stepped into the bathroom, door closing behind her, leaving Callista standing alone in the center of the room, heart thundering, throat burning, mind spinning. And for the first time since she'd built her empire, since she became the woman no one dared question, Callista Carrington felt unsteady. Not because she was afraid of Celine, but because she wasn't. And that terrified her more than anything. The sound of the bathroom door clicking shut echoed louder in Callista's mind than it had any right to. She stood frozen in the middle of the penthouse suite, her tailored jacket still buttoned, her fists tight at her sides, her heart refusing to obey. She could hear the water running behind the door, soft, steady, like rain on glass. Celine was in there, washing off the day, washing off the past, maybe. Or maybe preparing for war in silk and steam. Callista didn't move. Not until the silence pressed into her bones and forced her legs toward the liquor cabinet. She poured herself 2 fingers of bourbon and downed it without blinking. It didn't help. The burn in her throat was nothing compared to the heat spiraling in her chest. Anger, confusion, memory, too much. Too fast. 15 years. 15 years of silence, of imagining Celine gone forever, of rewriting her story without her. And now she was here, in the next room, undressing, smiling, acting like none of it had happened. Callista gripped the edge of the marble counter and stared at her reflection in the glass. Her makeup was flawless, her hair still perfectly sculpted, her face unreadable. But her eyes looked like they belonged to someone else. Someone young. Someone cracked open. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. She could feel Celine's presence in the room like a gravitational shift. The air changed when she was near, warmer, more dangerous. You didn't change, Celine said quietly. Of course not, Callista snapped. I'm not the one who ran. No, Celine agreed, stepping further into the room, barefoot now, wearing nothing but a silk robe that clung to her like a secret. You stayed, and built an empire. What do you want, Celine? Callista turned, her voice sharp, brittle. Tell me why you're here. Why now? Why this marriage? Celine looked at her for a long, excruciating moment. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, eyes steady. Do you remember the night I left? Callista flinched. No, liar. Silence stretched between them like a live wire. You slammed the door, Callista whispered, hating the way the words came out small. You didn't even look back. Because if I had, Celine said, I wouldn't have left. That landed hard. Callista felt the blow deep in her gut. Why did you? She asked, and her voice cracked for the first time in years. Celine didn't answer right away. She reached up and twisted the ring now resting on her finger. The band Callista had slid on only hours earlier, with cold hands and a colder heart. There were things I couldn't say then, Celine murmured. Things that would have ruined you. Us. You ruined us anyway. Maybe, Celine said. But I wasn't ready. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments, on a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. And you, God, you were so ambitious, so sure of where you were going. I couldn't be the thing that pulled you off course. You were never a distraction, Callista said tightly. You were the only thing that ever made sense. Celine smiled then, a small, broken thing. And now. Callista took a step closer, fire licking at the edge of her control. Now you're a stranger in my house, in my bed, in a marriage that shouldn't exist. But it does. Because you let it happen. So did you. Callista stared at her. What are you doing, Celine? Reminding you who we were. We're not those people anymore. Aren't we? Celine stood slowly, and for the first time that night, Callista stepped back.
Just one step.
But Celine saw it. Her eyes flicked down to Callista's shoes, then back up, sharp and knowing. You're afraid of me. I'm afraid of what you make me feel. Good. That word, low, sultry, devastating, ripped through Callista like a blade. Celine moved closer. Close enough that Callista could see the tiny gold flecks in her irises, the faint mark of a long-healed scar, the fullness of lips she'd memorized in another life. Do you remember, Celine whispered, that summer after we graduated? Your father caught us in the guest house. Don't, Callista said, her voice thin. You wore my sweatshirt. Nothing else. And you told me, stop. That if the world found out, you'd burn it all down just to keep me. Celine. Did you mean it? Callista swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. She hated her body for betraying her. Hated how her heart had never learned how to lie when Celine was near. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I can't go back. I'm not asking you to. Celine leaned in, her lips just inches from Callista's ear. I'm asking if you ever stopped loving me.
That broke something.
Callista turned away, walking to the window, arms crossed so tightly it hurt. The city below glittered like a lie. She didn't answer.
Couldn't.
Behind her, Celine didn't press. She just said, I'll sleep in the other room. And for some reason, that felt worse than if she'd stayed. Callista waited until she heard the bedroom door close. Only then did she let herself sit. Let her shoulders fall. Let her heart beat like it was trying to claw out of her chest. She remembered the guest house, the summer, the promises. She remembered everything. And she didn't know what scared her more, how much she hated Celine or how much she still wanted her. Callista woke before the sun, a habit carved into her body from years of building empires and surviving on the sharp edge of control. But today, something was different. Her sheets were tangled,
her throat dry,
her skin too alert. And the silence in the penthouse wasn't peaceful, it was electric. She sat up slowly, one hand braced on the mattress, the other brushing her temples. Her dreams had been fragmented, flashes of skin and memory, and Celine's voice like smoke curling through her ribs. She hated that. Hated the way Celine still lived in the quiet parts of her. She rose and moved through the penthouse like a ghost, bare feet on cool marble, trying not to look at the door to the second bedroom. She told herself she didn't care where Celine had slept. Told herself she wasn't listening for movement, wasn't glancing at her reflection to check if her emotions were visible. The kitchen was dim, flooded with soft blue light from the city, still sleeping outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. She reached for the espresso machine, fingers efficient, movements mechanical, routine, control, stability. But then, soft footsteps behind her. She didn't have to look to know who it was. Celine moved like she always had. Light, confident, aware of her effect, without flaunting it. You're up early, Celine said, her voice still morning rough and far too intimate for the distance between them. Callista didn't turn. Old habits. Some habits are hard to break. Callista heard the double meaning and ignored it. Do you want coffee? If you're offering. I'm being polite. Polite looks good on you. That earned Celine her first glance. Callista turned, slowly, and found her standing in one of Callista's own shirts. Oversized, soft, charcoal gray, hanging off one shoulder like it had been styled by memory. Her legs were bare. Her hair was pulled back messily. She looked out of place and perfectly at home, and Callista's pulse jumped in betrayal. You went through my closet, she said, too sharply. Celine lifted an eyebrow. You married me, but I can't borrow a shirt? This isn't a real marriage. Isn't it? Callista clenched her jaw. Don't play that game with me. Celine stepped closer, taking the cup Callista handed her, without breaking eye contact. You think everything's a game. But I'm here. You're here. You put a ring on my finger. Don't remind me. I don't have to. You keep looking at it. Callista jerked her gaze away. What are you trying to prove? Nothing.
Sip. Pause.
Everything. Callista turned her back again, needing space, needing air. But Celine followed, quiet, patient, like she knew Callista would crack eventually. Do you remember the first time you kissed me? Celine asked softly. Callista's spine stiffened. No, liar. Callista hated that word from her lips. It felt too intimate. Too right. It was pouring rain, Celine continued. Senior year. We were supposed to be studying for finals, but you were restless. Angry. I dragged you outside and dared you to run barefoot in the grass. You're misremembering. No, Celine said, stepping closer until their shoulders nearly brushed. You kissed me like the world was ending. Callista closed her eyes. And you left like it did. That hung between them, heavy and sharp. Celine sighed. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did. I know. Callista turned to face her then, finally, fully. So what now? We pretend this is normal? That we can share space without remembering everything? No, Celine said. We remember. And maybe we deal with it. Deal with it how? Celine didn't answer. She just reached out, slow and deliberate, her fingers grazing Callista's wrist. The touch was featherlight, but it landed like fire. Callista didn't pull away. Couldn't. Her breath caught, the air between them charged like a storm about to break. She felt her body betray her again, how her skin burned where Celine touched, how her heart slammed against her ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. She hated this. Hated the vulnerability. Hated how badly she still wanted. Celine leaned in slightly, not enough to cross a line, but enough to make the space between them suffocating. Tell me to stop, she whispered. Callista didn't. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Celine waited, eyes locked on hers, and when the silence stretched too long, she stepped back.
Just like that.
Like she hadn't just undone years of Callista's emotional armor with one near touch. I'll be in the study, Celine said softly, like nothing had happened. Let me know when you're ready to talk business. And then she was gone, barefoot again, the hem of the shirt swaying as she walked away. Callista stood frozen. Her hand still tingled. Her chest ached. And in that moment, she realized two terrifying things. 1. Celine knew exactly what she was doing. And 2. Callista was letting her. Callista had spent the last 24 hours pretending she wasn't unraveling. She went to meetings, signed papers, spoke to executives with her usual sharp efficiency. But none of it felt real. Every second, every breath, was haunted by the memory of Celine's voice in the kitchen, the brush of her fingers on her skin, the unbearable awareness that her wife, was inside her home, her life, her space. Moving quietly, watching everything. That night, Callista came home late, deliberately, hoping Celine would be asleep. But of course she wasn't. She was in the study, curled into the corner of the leather armchair, reading one of Callista's books. She looked up as Callista walked in, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was sharp, fragile. Callista exhaled slowly. You don't have to wait up for me. I wasn't, Celine said, setting the book down. This room just feels familiar. You were never in it. Not this version, Celine agreed. But you always said you wanted a space like this. Big windows. Dark wood. Silence. Callista didn't answer. She moved to the bar, poured herself a drink, stared out the window. Stop doing that, she said finally. Doing what? Talking like you know me. I do. No, you knew who I was. She turned. 15 years ago. I knew who you were before you built the walls. Before the sharp suits and the silence. Don't pretend you know what I've been through. Then tell me. That stopped her. Celine's eyes were calm, steady, but there was something underneath, something trembling. Callista set the glass down too hard. You don't get to ask questions. Then why did you marry me? Because I didn't know it was you. And now that you do? Now I want you gone. Liar. The word landed like a slap. Callista's chest tightened. Stop calling me that. Then stop lying to yourself. You think you can just show up, and what? Undo everything. No, Celine stood, slow and deliberate. I think I can remind you of the truth. You don't know what the truth is. Then tell me what happened the night I left. Callista's jaw clenched. You know what happened. No, I know what I remember. I remember a phone call. I remember your voice, cold and distant. I remember you telling me to disappear and never contact you again. Because you were going to destroy everything I'd built. I was trying to protect you by walking away, by taking the fall. The room went silent. Callista blinked. What? Celine stepped closer. You never read the reports, did you? I buried everything. Of course you did. Celine's voice was soft now, but sharp at the edges. Your father's company was being investigated. Someone leaked documents. I was blamed. Because you leaked them. No, Celine said. Because I found them. The room tilted. Callista gripped the edge of the desk. You said nothing. I said enough to save you. You left me. I chose between your future and our relationship. I chose you. Callista shook her head. You made that decision without me. Because if I told you, you would have burned everything to protect me. You don't know that. I do. Celine stepped even closer now. Because you loved me. And I loved you. And I wasn't going to let your life crash because of something your father did. Don't bring him into this. Why not? He's the reason we lost everything. Callista's breath came fast now. Her chest was heaving. You think I didn't suffer? You buried me. I buried myself, she snapped. Because I couldn't breathe without you. Because every room reminded me of you. Because I couldn't understand why the one person I trusted vanished like I never existed. Celine's expression cracked. Just a little. I wrote you a letter. I never got it. He burned it, she whispered. Who? Your father. Callista went still. He said if I ever contacted you again, he'd ruin you. He wasn't bluffing. You let him control you. I let him protect you. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Callista's voice came, low and dangerous. You had no right. Maybe not. But I made a choice. You made the wrong one. Celine nodded slowly. I've lived with that every day. The room was hot now, stifling. The air between them burned. Callista's hands were shaking. She wanted to hit something. Scream.
Cry.
Instead, she did something much worse. She stepped forward and grabbed Celine's wrist. Not hard, not soft. Just enough. Their faces inches apart. You don't get to rewrite history, she said, voice trembling. You don't get to waltz back into my life with your calm voice and your stolen shirts and your sad eyes and pretend like we can fix this. I'm not pretending, Celine said. I'm here. You shouldn't be. And yet, she leaned in. Callista didn't move.
Couldn't.
Their lips were so close it hurt. Her heart was a riot in her chest. If you kiss me, Callista warned, I'll hate you more than I already do. Then hate me, Celine whispered. And she kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tender. It was raw, painful, years of silence and betrayal colliding in one impossible, perfect, devastating moment. Callista kissed back like she wanted to tear Celine apart, like she wanted to drown in her and destroy her at the same time. And when she finally pulled away, breathless, trembling, furious, she slapped her. The sound cracked through the room. Celine didn't move, just blinked slowly, lips swollen, breathing hard. That's fair, she said. Callista turned away, heart racing, hands shaking. Get out, she whispered. Get out before I do something I can't undo. Celine left. Quietly. No words. No glance back. And Callista sank to the floor, every part of her breaking open. Callista didn't sleep. She didn't even lie down. After Celine walked out, the door closing with that soft, infuriating calmness of hers, Callista stayed on the floor, knees pulled tight to her chest, eyes burning but dry. Her chest ached with something sharp and formless, something she refused to name. She wasn't crying.
She didn't cry.
Not even when the board turned on her 5 years ago. Not when her father died and left behind a legacy of secrets. Not when she signed the contract that led her here. But this night, Celine's lips, Celine's truth, Celine's silence after the slap, this had cracked something in her. And Callista didn't know how to close it. When the light outside began to shift, bleeding gray into the dark corners of the room, she finally stood. Her muscles were stiff, her mind fogged, her hands trembling as she made her way to the bathroom. The mirror didn't lie. Her skin was pale, her eyes haunted, her mouth red and raw. She touched her lips and hated the way they still felt kissed. The shower was scalding hot, but it didn't burn enough. Nothing could. She dressed in silence. Charcoal blouse, sharp trousers, a watch worth more than most people's salaries. Armor, piece by piece. By the time she entered the living room, the sun had fully risen, and Celine was gone. Not gone. Her things were still in the guest bedroom. But the apartment felt emptier, colder. Callista walked into the kitchen expecting to see her sitting at the counter again, barefoot, infuriatingly calm. But there was no trace of her. Just a plate with 2 pieces of toast, one of them buttered exactly the way Callista liked it. She stared at it for a full minute before tossing it in the trash. Miles called at 9:07 sharp. She answered with her usual clipped tone. Updates. You have a call with the Tokyo investors at 11. The security team reviewed last night's footage. Everything's clear. I also sent you the updated proposal for the Vega-Carrington merger. The name hit her like a punch. Don't call it that. That's what the legal team labeled it. Change it. Yes, ma'am. She hung up. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Vega-Carrington. Like this was some romantic partnership. Like it wasn't built on lies and blood and unfinished history.
She didn't work from the office that day.
Instead, she paced the penthouse, pretending to review numbers, contracts, headlines. Anything to keep her thoughts from circling back. But they did. Again and again. That kiss. That confession. That scar in Celine's voice when she said she took the fall. And the worst part? It made sense. Every bit of it. Her father. The investigation. The silence. The missing letter. Celine hadn't betrayed her. She'd sacrificed her. And Callista, blinded by pain, pride, ambition, had let her. Around 3 in the afternoon, she passed by the guest room.
Paused.
The door was slightly open. She told herself not to look. Told herself it didn't matter. But she looked. Celine's bag sat in the corner, half-zipped. A pair of flats neatly aligned. A paperback on the nightstand with a dog-eared page. And on the dresser, one of Callista's old t-shirts. Not stolen. Folded. Left out. Deliberate. A memory hit her like a truck. Celine, 17, sprawled on her dorm bed in that same shirt, laughing with a mouth full of gummy bears, asking if Callista ever stopped thinking. Not if I can help it, Callista had muttered, burying her face in Celine's shoulder. Good, Celine had whispered. Keep thinking. I'll keep you soft. The breath caught in her throat. She slammed the door shut. That night, Celine didn't return. Not to the kitchen. Not to the study. Not to her. Callista lay awake in her king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling like it might offer answers. None came. The next morning there was no toast. No coffee. Just silence. And something about that, about Celine finally giving her space, made Callista feel like she was suffocating. She dressed slower that day. Her hair not quite perfect. Her eyeliner not quite straight. She didn't speak to anyone until noon, when Miles entered her private office with a strange expression. There's something you should see. He handed her a tablet. A video. Callista pressed play. It was footage from the Carrington Foundation gala 3 years ago. She hadn't watched the media reels back then, too busy managing PR disasters and controlling board damage. But now, watching it, she saw it. In the crowd, a woman in the back row. Hair darker.
Skin more tanned.
Eyes locked on her.
Celine.
She was there, watching her, and she never said a word. How long have you had this? Callista asked, voice low. It surfaced this morning, Miles said. Apparently a paparazzi reel got leaked on social media and someone tagged her. Who else has seen it? Only us. So far. Callista closed the tablet. Her pulse was a thunderstorm. Schedule a press blackout. Already done. When he left, she stared at the door. Celine had been watching her long before this marriage. She had been close, present, and said nothing. That night, when Callista returned to the penthouse, Celine was there, sitting on the balcony, barefoot again, hair loose, staring at the skyline like it held all their answers. Callista stepped outside, heart pounding. Celine turned. Their eyes met. You knew, Callista said. Celine didn't deny it. I watched you become everything we used to dream about. Why didn't you say something? Because I wasn't ready. And now I'm here. Callista didn't know if it was relief or fury that gripped her chest. But she said nothing more, just stood there, breathing in the city. And next to her, Celine whispered, You looked beautiful that night. Callista closed her eyes and hated how much it meant to hear it. It started with rain. Not just the casual drizzle Manhattan was known for in late spring, but a downpour that painted the skyline in streaks of silver and thunder. Callista stood in the kitchen, the lights low, the city blurred behind floor-to-ceiling windows, her fingers wrapped loosely around a glass of wine she hadn't touched. The storm outside matched the one inside her, quiet and steady, too controlled to be seen, but not to be felt. She didn't expect Celine to join her. After the balcony moment, after the quiet acknowledgement that Celine had watched her for years without speaking, Callista had retreated into herself again, too afraid of what she might say if she stayed near her. But now, as the sky cracked open with lightning, she heard soft footsteps behind her and knew it was Celine. She didn't turn.
Couldn't.
I always loved the rain, Celine said softly, her voice almost lost in the thunder. You used to say it made you feel like everything could start over. Callista's throat tightened. That was a long time ago. Maybe. But you still watch it the same way. What way is that? Like you're hoping it'll wash something away. Callista turned then, slowly, and met her eyes. Celine stood barefoot again, wearing a loose sweater that hung off one shoulder and a pair of leggings that made her look like she belonged here. Like she'd never left. Her hair was damp at the ends, her face clean, stripped of armor. Callista hated how beautiful she still was. How familiar. I'm not the same girl, Callista said. I know. I don't watch the rain for hope. I watch it because it reminds me that control is an illusion. Celine nodded slowly. That sounds like you. Callista turned back to the window. Why are you really here, Celine? You know why. Tell me anyway. Celine stepped closer, her voice low. Because I couldn't keep pretending you didn't matter. Because I got tired of being a ghost in your past. Because I still dream about you. Callista closed her eyes. You shouldn't. I know. A long silence passed between them, filled only by the rain. Then, softly, Celine asked, Did you ever love anyone after me? Callista didn't answer right away. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I tried. And they weren't you. That truth left her exposed in a way that made her skin feel raw. She braced herself for Celine's reaction, but it never came. Just a breath. A quiet acknowledgement. Then Celine reached out and took the glass from her hand, setting it down on the counter. Her fingers brushed against Callista's, just a graze, but it was enough to light a fire under her skin. You should eat something, Celine said gently. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. You need to take care of yourself. Don't act like you care. But I do. Callista turned to face her fully, something dangerous in her eyes.
Why?
Why after all this time? After everything you destroyed. Celine's expression cracked, pain flickering through her features. Because I never stopped loving you. The words hit like thunder. Callista staggered back a step, breath caught in her throat. You don't get to say that now. I know, but it's still true. Then why did you wait so long? Celine looked down. Because I didn't know how to come back. Because I thought you'd moved on. Because I was scared that if I saw you again, I'd fall apart. Callista felt something shift in her. A crack in the armor she'd spent years perfecting. She stepped closer, her voice low and shaky. And now? Celine looked up, eyes shining. Now I don't care if I fall apart. Callista didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was both of them. But suddenly they were closer, inches apart, the rain pounding against the glass behind them, the air between them thick with everything unsaid. Celine reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Callista's ear. The touch was featherlight, reverent, like she was handling something sacred. Callista's breath caught. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This doesn't fix anything, she said. I know. It doesn't erase the pain. No, and I still don't trust you. You don't have to. Celine's voice dropped to a whisper. Just let me be near you. Callista closed her eyes, her defenses shattering in silence. And then, slowly, she let Celine pull her into an embrace. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't even romantic. It was quiet.
Soft. Devastating.
Two bodies fitting together out of instinct, out of memory, out of something too deep to name. Callista buried her face in Celine's neck and let herself breathe her in. Let herself remember what it felt like to be held, to be safe, to be known. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in silence and stormlight, the world outside blurring into nothing. Eventually, Celine whispered, Do you want me to stay in the guest room tonight? Callista didn't answer, just pulled her closer. Callista didn't know what she expected when she woke up. Maybe distance, regret. That familiar wall of silence she'd spent years building, solid and cold and always within reach. But when she opened her eyes, she was still wrapped in warmth, in breath, in Celine. The sheets barely separated them. Their legs were tangled. Celine's arm was draped over her waist like it belonged there, like it had never stopped. And Callista, God help her, hadn't moved. Her body was relaxed in a way it hadn't been in years, her mind quiet for once, her heartbeat slow, steady, betraying everything she pretended to be. She didn't open her eyes right away. She stayed in that liminal space, suspended between memory and mourning, where nothing had broken yet. Celine shifted slightly, her breath brushing against Callista's neck. The scent of her, clean skin, something floral and faintly sweet, wrapped around her like gravity. Then her voice, low and still laced with sleep. You always woke up first. Callista's eyes opened. Only because you always stole the blankets. Celine chuckled softly. I had to survive somehow. Callista turned, slowly meeting her gaze. The moment felt fragile, sacred, like one wrong move would send it shattering. Did you sleep? She asked. Celine nodded. Better than I have in a long time. Callista didn't know what to do with that. She didn't know what to do with any of it. The closeness, the comfort, the way her body leaned instinctively into Celine's without permission. I should get up, she said, but didn't move. You could stay 5 more minutes. That sounds dangerous. Only if you're afraid of remembering. I'm afraid of forgetting, Callista said quietly. Forgetting why I locked this part of myself away. Celine's hand moved, slowly, resting lightly on Callista's hip. Not possessive, not demanding, just there. A reminder. You haven't forgotten, she whispered. Not really. Callista closed her eyes again. Tell me something true, she said. Something real. Something I don't already know. Celine was quiet for a moment. Then, in a voice so soft it felt like a secret, she said, The night I left, I stood outside your building for 3 hours. I didn't want to go. I kept hoping you'd come down.
That you'd chase me.
That we'd fight and cry and fall apart together instead of me doing it alone. Callista's throat tightened. I never saw you. I know. Your father had already told me I wasn't welcome, but I waited anyway. And then, I got in a cab. I went to the bus station. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to disappear. Callista opened her eyes. Why didn't you call? Because I knew if I heard your voice, I wouldn't have been strong enough to leave. You think it was strong? Leaving? At the time, yes. And now? Now I think it was cowardice disguised as sacrifice. Callista stared at her. Celine looked tired beneath the softness. Not physically. Soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying the weight of what-ifs for too long. I tried to hate you, Callista whispered. Every day, for years. Did it work? Only on the days I missed you the most. Celine didn't respond. She just shifted closer, her fingers brushing a loose strand of hair from Callista's face, the touch so gentle it felt like apology. Callista's breath caught. The room was too quiet, too full of everything. She sat up suddenly, swinging her legs over the edge of the bed, grounding herself in movement. I need coffee. I'll make it. You don't have to. I want to. Callista didn't stop her.
Couldn't.
She sat in the silence Celine left behind, her body still humming with memory. 20 minutes later, Celine returned with 2 cups. One black, one with a dash of oat milk and exactly 1 sugar. The way Callista liked it. She took it without a word. You remembered. I never forgot. They drank in silence. Not tense. Not quite comfortable either. Something in between. When Callista set her cup down, she looked at Celine and said, Do you remember the lake house? Celine smiled faintly. The summer after graduation? Callista nodded. You spent half the trip trying to fix that broken dock. You watched me for hours and never offered to help. I was 17 and obsessed with your arms. Celine laughed then, real, open, warm, and Callista's chest cracked. I think that was the last time I was happy without guilt, Callista said. Celine's smile faded. I want that for you again. It's too late. It doesn't have to be. Callista looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw not the girl who left, but the woman who came back. And she didn't know what scared her more, how much she wanted to forgive, or how much she already had. But before she could say anything, a sharp chime cut through the room. Callista's phone lit up. Unknown number. 1 word on the screen. Confession. She answered. A distorted voice, electronic and untraceable. Does she know what your father did to mine? Callista froze. Who is this? The line went dead. Silence. Celine stared at her. Callista? But she couldn't speak, because the past wasn't done with them yet, and someone else had just entered the game. Callista stared at the phone in her hand long after the screen went black, her breath shallow, her mind spinning. The voice hadn't sounded familiar. It had been distorted, masked, robotic, but the words had cut deep, sharp and deliberate. Does she know what your father did to mine? It wasn't a threat. It was a warning, a reminder, a promise. Celine stepped closer, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Callista, she said gently. What was that? Callista forced her features into composure, slipping the phone into her pocket like it hadn't just shattered her morning. Wrong number.
Celine didn't buy it.
You froze. It startled me. That's all. You're lying. You're imagining things. Celine folded her arms. If something's wrong, I deserve to know.
Why?
Because we shared a bed. Because I'm your wife. The word struck like a match. Callista looked away. You're a name on a contract. That's not what you said last night. Last night was a mistake. The words tasted bitter, but she said them anyway. Because if Celine asked the wrong questions, if she started digging, there were things she could never be allowed to find. Things Callista had spent years burying. Celine didn't press, but her silence spoke volumes. She walked to the balcony, leaving Callista alone with the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled. She clenched them into fists, controlled her breathing, focused, compartmentalized. That was how she survived. That was how she won. She replayed the message in her mind. Does she know what your father did to mine? It wasn't just an attack, it was personal, intimate. Whoever made that call knew exactly who Celine was, knew what Callista stood to lose. And that terrified her more than anything. She needed answers. Quietly, she slipped into her study and locked the door, sat at her desk, activated the encrypted console hidden in the drawer. Within seconds, her private network came alive. She typed in a single name, Alec Moreno, her father's former CFO, a man who disappeared the same year Celine left. Rumors said he fled the country, that he was silenced, that he knew too much. But Callista remembered the whispers, the accusations, the evidence that vanished. Her father's cold eyes when she asked questions. She ran a search. No activity. No known relatives. But a daughter. Emilia Moreno. Born the same year as Celine. Attended private school in upstate New York. Graduated from Columbia. Changed her last name after her father's disappearance. Now living in Manhattan. A picture loaded. Callista's blood ran cold. Dark hair. Sharp jaw. Calculating eyes. She'd seen her before. At the gala. At a board meeting. At a charity event. Always in the background. Always watching. She hadn't recognized her then. But now she couldn't unsee it. Emilia Moreno had been orbiting her life for years. Waiting. Watching. Callista leaned back in her chair, breath unsteady. This wasn't about revenge. This was about exposure. Destruction. Someone wanted to burn everything she'd built, starting with the one thing she hadn't planned for.
Celine.
A knock at the door. Callista? Celine's voice, soft but worried. Can we talk? Callista hesitated, then composed herself, deactivated the console, and opened the door. Is everything okay? Celine asked. Callista nodded. Just work. Celine studied her. You look pale. I'm fine. You're lying again. Let it go. Celine didn't. She stepped closer, searching her face. What are you afraid I'll find? Nothing. You flinch when I mention your father. You shut down every time we talk about the past. And now you're acting like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. Then tell me what it is. No, why not? Because it will change everything. Celine's voice dropped. Then maybe it needs to. Callista shook her head. You think you know me, but you don't. You never saw what it took to build this life. I saw you fight. I saw you sacrifice. You saw what I let you see. Celine reached out, fingers grazing Callista's arm. I'm not afraid of the truth. You should be. Their eyes locked. Callista's defenses were fraying. She felt it, the unraveling, the slow descent, the part of her that wanted to scream, to confess, to be held. But there was too much at stake. So she did what she always did. She retreated. I have a meeting, she said coldly. We'll talk later. Callista, drop it. And then she walked away, heels echoing through the silence. But hours later, back at the office, she found a note on her desk. Handwritten. No signature. Just a single sentence in careful cursive. Secrets buried with the dead don't stay buried forever. She crumpled it in her fist, but the words burned anyway. That night, Celine wasn't home. Callista waited.
Paced. Called.
Nothing. Midnight came and went. At 1:04 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One photo. Celine. Alone. Standing in front of Alec Moreno's old apartment building. The message. How much longer until she knows? Callista's heart stopped. Because now it wasn't a threat. It was a countdown. Callista didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat in the darkened living room, the only light coming from the skyline beyond the windows, her phone clutched in her hand. The image of Celine standing in front of Alec Moreno's building burned into her mind. Her pulse hadn't settled in hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Celine in danger. Celine finding out everything. Celine walking away, again, but for good this time. She replayed the message over and over. How much longer until she knows? It wasn't a question. It was a warning. She felt it like a rope tightening around her neck. When the door finally opened at 2:47 a.m., Callista stood so fast she nearly knocked over the glass on the table. Celine stepped inside quietly, soaked from the rain, her hair clinging to her neck, eyes shadowed with something dark and unreadable. Callista didn't speak. She couldn't. Celine shut the door and leaned against it like she needed the support. "Are you going to tell me why someone sent me to that building?" Her voice wasn't angry, it was hollow. That was worse. Callista tried to breathe. "It's not safe." "No," Celine said, stepping forward. "What's not safe is being married to someone who lies to my face while the world around us falls apart. I'm protecting you." "From what?" Callista hesitated. "From the truth." "Then we have a problem." "Celine, don't say my name like that." Her voice cracked. "Don't say it like it still means something if you won't even trust me." "I do trust you." "Then tell me why that building matters. Why someone is watching me. Why you've been acting like I'm going to shatter if I get too close to whatever this is." Callista's jaw clenched. Her hands trembled at her sides. "Because if you know what I know, you'll hate me. Try me." Callista turned away, pressing her fingers to her temples, fighting the spiral building in her chest. "My father wasn't who you thought he was. You don't have to protect his legacy." "I'm not." She turned back, eyes burning. "I'm protecting you from the fallout." "Callista, talk to me." "Alec Moreno," she whispered. "The man whose building you were at. He worked for my father. CFO. Brilliant. Loyal. Honest. Until he wasn't." Celine frowned. "What happened?" "He discovered something. Fraud. Bribery. A trail of illegal transactions buried deep in the company's infrastructure. He was going to expose it. And he disappeared." Celine's breath caught. "Disappeared?" Callista nodded. "No one ever found his body. No official investigation. My father made sure of it." "You think he had him killed?" I think Alec knew he wouldn't survive what he'd uncovered." Celine stared at her, eyes wide. "That's what you've been hiding." Callista swallowed hard. "His daughter is the one sending the messages." "She's threatening you?" "She's threatening us." Celine stepped back like she'd been struck. "Us?" "She sent me a photo of you. Said I had a countdown." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to drag you into it." "I'm already in it, Callista." Her voice broke. "You should have told me the second this started." "And risk losing you again?" "You're losing me now by keeping me in the dark." "I was trying to protect you." "I don't need your protection," Celine shouted. The silence that followed was suffocating. Callista's voice was barely a whisper. "I do." Celine froze. Callista stepped closer, her composure cracking, the cracks running deep now, raw and exposed. "You're the only person who makes me feel like I'm not drowning." Celine's eyes softened, but her voice was still sharp. "Then why do you keep pushing me away?" "Because every time I look at you, I remember who I used to be. And I don't know if I can survive losing her again." Celine's expression shattered. She stepped forward, closed the distance, her hands trembling as she reached for Callista's face. "Then stop trying to survive and start choosing me." Callista leaned in before she could think, could stop herself, and their mouths met like fire and forgiveness. This kiss wasn't like the first. It wasn't rage or punishment. It was desperation. It was memory clawing its way back into the present. It was years of silence melting into heat and longing and something terrifyingly close to hope. Celine pushed her back gently until they collided with the nearest wall, hands slipping under Callista's blazer, pushing it off, breaking through every layer of armor. Callista let her. She let herself be kissed, touched, seen. Her hands gripped Celine's hips like they were lifelines. Their breaths came fast. Their bodies pressed closer. The heat between them was impossible to ignore. But just as Celine's hands slid under her shirt, Callista stopped. Pulled back. Breathing hard. "We can't." "Why?" "Because if we do this, I won't be able to let you go again." Celine's voice was low, rough. "Maybe you're not supposed to." Callista stared at her, torn open, undone, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel powerful. She felt human. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. If this all falls apart, don't let me become like him." Celine's eyes shone with tears. She reached up and kissed her forehead, soft, reverent. "You're nothing like him." Callista let her forehead rest against Celine's, heart pounding. "You make me want to believe that. Then believe it." And just like that, they stood in the quiet, not fixed, not whole, but together. And neither of them saw the email that had just landed in Callista's inbox. From Emilia Moreno. Subject line: public statement draft attached. And the clock kept ticking. Callista found the email at 3:12 a.m., her inbox glowing faintly in the dark room as if the screen itself knew the weight of what it contained. The subject line was simple, direct: public statement draft attached. No greeting, no signature, no threats. Just a PDF file and the implication that everything she had fought to keep buried was about to surface. She hesitated only a moment before opening it. Her breath caught as her eyes moved across the text. It was formatted like an official press release. Elegant.
Clean. Deadly.
Carrington Empire built on blood, uncovering the disappearance of Alec Moreno. The first paragraph detailed her father's hidden accounts, the missing audit trails, the internal silencing of whistleblowers. The second paragraph named Alec. The third named her. Callista Emery Carrington, heiress, billionaire, current CEO. Not directly guilty, the draft stated, but complicit by inheritance. Protected by silence. Built on shadows. And then came the final line, chilling in its restraint. How long will the world continue to celebrate power built over a grave? Callista's hands were cold. Her heart thundered in her chest, not from fear, but from the truth of it. Because they weren't lies. Not really. Not entirely. The statements were carefully worded, impossible to deny without dragging more secrets into the light. And Emilia Moreno had written it like someone who understood the system from the inside. Because she did. Callista closed the file and pressed her hands against her face. She had maybe hours. A day, if Emilia was feeling generous. And Celine was still asleep down the hall, tangled in sheets that smelled like trust and memory and things Callista didn't deserve. The weight of the past pressed against her spine. She stood and paced the room like a caged animal, trying to think, to plan, to find an exit. But the door was closing, and she was running out of time. At 6:02 a.m., she made coffee she wouldn't drink. At 6:14, Celine appeared in the doorway, sleepy-eyed, hair messy, skin glowing in the pale dawn. "You're up early," she said, voice soft. Callista forced a smile. "Habit. You're pale. Coffee helps." "Does it?" Celine stepped into the room, her gaze narrowing slightly. "You're tense." "I'm always tense." "No," she said gently. "This is different." Callista didn't respond. Celine moved closer, placed a hand over hers on the counter. "Talk to me." "I can't." "You already did." "Not all of it." "Then tell me the rest." "You don't want to know." "Let me decide that." Callista pulled her hand back, slowly. "There's a file. A draft. Emilia wrote it. She's ready to go public." Celine stilled. "With what?" "Everything." "Your father?" "Yes." "You." Callista hesitated. "Indirectly." "That's not a no." "She doesn't need to lie. The truth is damaging enough." "Show me." "Celine, now." Callista retrieved the tablet, opened the file, and handed it over. Celine read in silence, her expression unreadable. Her fingers trembled only once, when she reached the paragraph with Callista's name. When she finished, she looked up, and the silence between them was sharper than a scream. "Did you know?" "Not at first, but eventually." "Yes." "And you said nothing?" "What could I say?" "The truth." "And destroy the company? The employees?" "Everything built from the ashes." "Built from the ashes of a man who tried to protect people." "I was 18 when it happened. I was told Alec was dangerous. I believed it. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late. Celine's voice dropped. You could have said something. I didn't have proof. You had his daughter watching you for years. And I tried to keep you out of it. I'm not a child, Callista.
No.
You're everything I can't lose. The words stopped Celine cold. That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. You kept this from me. Because I knew if you saw it, you'd walk away. And now. Callista stepped closer, eyes full of something she hadn't let surface until now. Now I won't stop you. Celine searched her face. What are you saying? I'll resign. Today. Step down from everything.
Give Amelia what she wants.
End the company, the legacy, whatever it takes. If it means you're safe. Celine's voice broke. Don't do that. Why not? Because it's not just your legacy anymore. It's ours. Not if this destroys you. I survived losing you once. I won't survive it again. Then what do we do? Celine was quiet for a long time. Then she said, we fight smart. Together? Only way we win. And then, before either of them could second guess, Celine kissed her again. Not desperate, not broken, but steady.
Fierce. Certain.
When they pulled apart, Callista whispered, even if this ends everything, then we go down knowing we chose each other. A soft chime interrupted them. A new message. No longer anonymous. Sent directly to Callista. From Emilia Moreno. I'd like to meet. 1 hour. Bring her. Attached, the location. A small cafe downtown. Neutral.
Public.
Loaded with danger. Callista looked at Celine. It's her. Celine's eyes didn't flinch. Then let's go. The cafe was almost too ordinary. Tucked on a quiet corner in downtown Manhattan, it looked like any other place where strangers shared silent breakfasts and baristas spelled names wrong on purpose. But for Callista, the air inside felt heavy, warped by the weight of the past pressing into her lungs. She and Celine entered together, the bell above the door chiming lightly as they stepped through. Neither spoke. Celine walked beside her, her fingers brushing briefly against Callista's as if to say, I'm here, and Callista held on to that more tightly than she held her own breath. Emilia Moreno was already there. Back corner table. Alone. No bodyguard. No dramatics. Just a woman with sharp eyes, black hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, and a tablet resting between her hands like a blade. She looked up the moment they approached, her gaze moving past Callista and locking directly onto Celine. Not with curiosity. With precision. Like a sniper choosing where to shoot. You brought her, Emilia said, her voice smooth, even. I wasn't sure you would. Callista didn't sit. You asked for both of us. And you obeyed. Emilia gestured to the 2 empty seats across from her.
Please.
Let's be civilized. Celine sat first.
Calm.
Controlled. But her eyes were alert. Callista followed, her pulse loud in her ears. Emilia didn't speak for a moment. She just watched them. Then she said, You loved him. Callista blinked. What? Your father. You loved him. I didn't know him, and I lost mine because of him. Celine leaned forward slightly. Why am I here, Emilia? Emilia's eyes flicked to hers. Because I wanted you to see what love built on lies looks like. Callista's hand curled into a fist under the table. If you came for revenge, say it. I came for justice. You call it revenge because you think I want blood. I don't. Then what do you want? A choice. Emilia unlocked her tablet, rotated it, and slid it across the table toward Callista. A folder was open. Dozens of files. Photos. Scans. Emails. Audio recordings. This is everything your father tried to erase. Everything Alec risked his life to bring forward. I've been collecting it for 15 years. It's enough to bury Carrington Industries, dissolve every board, revoke every license, destroy every investor tied to the company. And you. Callista didn't flinch. Then do it. Celine turned sharply. Callista, if you want to release it, do it now. Emilia smiled faintly. Not without giving you a choice first. Because I'm not like your father. I don't take power. I offer it. Power to do what? Tell your own story. On your terms.
Step down. Dissolve the company.
Publicly take responsibility for what he did. Expose him. Name names. Walk away from everything. If you do that on camera by your own hand, I'll destroy the files. You'll still lose, but you'll lose with dignity. Quietly. Celine's voice was tight. And if she refuses? Then I release everything. I send it to the press, the courts, the regulators. But first I send it to you, Celine. Privately. So you can see who she really is before the world does. The words hung like a blade between them. Celine's face changed. Her posture. Everything. That's why I'm here. Emilia nodded. You deserve to know what kind of woman you're married to. I already know. Do you? Emilia turned back to Callista. You think she'll stand by you when the world burns? You think love survives this kind of fire? Callista's voice was quiet but steady. She's stronger than you think. Emilia studied her. You look like him, you know. Your father. But you're not him. No, Callista said. Because I'm here, sitting across from you, listening, offering to pay for sins I didn't commit because I'm not afraid of the truth. Emilia's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes flickered. Then make the statement. Not today. Why? Because I want to do it in my own words, on my terms, not yours. You have 48 hours. You'll get it in 24. Emilia leaned back slowly. Then I suggest you choose your words carefully. The world's been waiting long enough. She stood, gathered her tablet, and looked at Celine one last time. You can still leave her. Celine didn't blink. You already tried that once. It didn't work then either. Emilia's mouth twitched, something between amusement and disappointment. Then she turned and left the cafe, disappearing into the rain-soaked street like she'd never been there at all. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Callista exhaled shakily. Celine reached out and covered her hand on the table. Are you going to do it? I have to. Then I'm with you. Even when it all collapses? Celine met her eyes. Especially then. Callista closed her fingers around hers, steadying herself. We go home, she whispered, and we write the truth. But as they stood and stepped back into the storm, Callista couldn't shake the feeling that the collapse had already begun. And it was only a matter of time before everything they'd tried to protect turned to ash. The apartment was silent, but not empty. It pulsed with something invisible, anticipation, fear, a kind of sacred stillness that only came before irreversible moments. Callista sat at the long glass desk in her private study, the city lights flickering like distant stars behind her. Her laptop screen glowed in front of her, cursor blinking on a blank page. Every word she thought of felt wrong. Too corporate. Too clean. Too detached. She didn't want to sound like a CEO. She didn't even want to sound like a Carrington. She just wanted to sound like herself, whoever that still was. Celine walked in without knocking, barefoot, wearing one of Callista's sweaters again, hair loose, her expression unreadable but calm. She carried 2 mugs of tea, not coffee. No caffeine. They'd need to sleep eventually. Maybe. How's it going? She asked softly. Callista shook her head, her jaw tense. It's like trying to write an obituary for a ghost I spent years pretending wasn't real. Celine handed her the tea, sat beside her on the edge of the desk. Then don't write for him. Write for you. Callista stared at the screen. I don't know who that is anymore. Then write to me. That silenced her. Celine reached forward and closed the laptop gently. Start with the truth. Not the headline. Not the numbers. The truth. Say it out loud. Callista looked away. He wasn't a good man. Keep going. He built something powerful, but it was never clean. And when people got in his way, he erased them. And you. I inherited the rot. I tried to bleach it clean, rebrand, rebuild, but it was still there, beneath the polish, waiting. What about Alec? I was 18 when he disappeared. My father told me he was a traitor, that he'd tried to steal. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to. Because it was easier than asking questions. Because asking meant losing everything, including the version of him I'd built in my head. Celine nodded. Keep going. Callista's voice cracked. I found the truth 5 years later. Hidden files. Memos. A confession email never sent. Alec had discovered everything. He'd been preparing to leak it. My father knew. And then he was gone. And you. I buried it. Again. I couldn't face it. I wasn't ready. And now. Now I have no choice. Celine reached out and took her hand. You do.
You always did.
This time, you're choosing to do what's right. That's what matters. Callista stared at her fingers intertwined with Celine's and whispered, what if it's not enough? Celine's voice was steady. Then we burn with dignity. Callista smiled faintly. You make it sound poetic. You make it real. They sat like that for a while. No scripts, no speeches, just presence. Eventually, Callista reopened the laptop. She started typing. Slowly at first. A sentence. Then another. Her voice, her truth, shaping the words. Celine read over her shoulder in silence, occasionally offering a suggestion. Not edits, just clarity. Emotion. Humanity. At one point, Callista wrote, I was raised by power and silence. I inherited both. And for too long, I believed they were the same as protection. Celine touched her shoulder.
That's it, she said.
That's where it begins. Hours passed. The city faded to black. A storm rolled in, distant thunder echoing like applause or warning. When the final paragraph was written, Callista leaned back, eyes closed, exhausted but grounded. It's done, she whispered. Celine nodded. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And that's more than he ever was. A beat. Then Celine stood and held out her hand. Come to bed. Callista hesitated. I don't know if I can sleep. Then don't. Just lie with me. They moved to the bedroom. No tension. No hesitation. Just warmth. Familiarity. Celine pulled the covers up. Callista slid in beside her. For a while, they lay in silence, their bodies close but not tangled. Their breathing slow.
Steady.
Celine spoke first. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever wonder what we would have been if none of this had happened? Every day. Me too. A pause. But I'm starting to believe this version of us might be stronger. Callista turned to face her, brushing Celine's cheek with the back of her hand.
Why?
Because we chose it. Callista leaned in, kissed her gently, soft, slow, reverent. Not desperation. Not fear. Just presence. The kiss deepened, their hands exploring each other's skin like a rediscovered language. When Callista's lips broke away from Celine's collarbone, she whispered, I don't want to lose this. Then don't. Even if everything burns tomorrow? Then we build something new from the ashes. Later, as Celine slept curled beside her, Callista slipped out of bed, walked to the desk, and printed the speech. She folded it carefully and placed it in a blank envelope. Then she did something she hadn't done in 15 years. She wrote Celine's name on the front, in her own handwriting, just in case. When she turned back, Celine was watching her. Quiet. Awake. What is that? A letter. For me? In case I lose the words when the lights come on. Celine sat up, pulled her knees to her chest. You won't. I might. Then I'll read them for you. Callista walked over, handed her the envelope. Promise me something. Name it. If I fall apart up there, don't come save me. Celine frowned. Why not? Because I need to do this alone. Just once. Celine held the envelope to her chest. Then I'll wait for you when it's done. And Callista believed her. The cameras were already rolling when Callista stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding, hot against her skin, but she didn't flinch. She wore no makeup, no jewelry. Just a black suit, simple and unadorned. The same shade she wore the day she signed the marriage contract that changed everything. The room was silent, except for the low hum of broadcast equipment and the distant clicking of shutters. Live stream banners flashed across global news networks. Carrington's statement imminent. Billionaire steps down. Whistleblower fallout unfolds. Celine watched from the wings. Not hidden, not out of sight, just far enough that Callista could still feel her presence. She wasn't there to intervene. She was there to witness. And that was exactly what Callista needed. The podium was cold under her fingertips. Her pulse was steady, her breath controlled, but her chest burned. She looked out into the sea of faceless cameras and began. "My name is Callista Emery Carrington." Her voice echoed across the silence.
Clear. Strong.
Unshaking. "You know me as a CEO, a billionaire, a legacy. You've seen my name on headlines, buildings, lawsuits, foundations, stock tickers. But today, I want you to hear my name for what it really is, a weight I've carried and a truth I've buried."
A pause.
The silence deepened. I was 18 when Alec Moreno disappeared. At the time, I was told he was a traitor, that he stole from the company, that he betrayed us. I believed that story because it was convenient, because it allowed me to keep breathing, because if I questioned it, I would have had to question everything I inherited. And I wasn't ready to do that. She swallowed hard, fingers tightening around the edge of the podium. "But I'm ready now." She reached down, unfolded a printed page. Not a script, just reminders. Anchor points. And at the top of the page, in her own handwriting, Celine's name. It grounded her. Over the last 15 years, I've discovered truths I can't ignore. Alec Moreno wasn't a traitor. He was a man trying to do the right thing. A man who uncovered fraud, manipulation, and corruption that went far beyond one company. My father silenced him, and I did nothing to stop it. Murmurs rippled through the press.
Gasps.
The sound of everything unraveling. For too long, I told myself that silence was protection, that legacy was loyalty, that wealth could replace truth. I was wrong. I inherited power, but I also inherited responsibility. And I failed to uphold it. Her voice cracked, just slightly. But she didn't stop. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO of Carrington Industries. The company will be dissolved. All assets will be liquidated and redirected into a trust for whistleblower protection and corporate ethics reform. Every document I have, every file my father tried to bury, will be turned over to federal investigators. She looked directly into the cameras now, her eyes burning. This is not a negotiation. This is not a rebrand. This is accountability. The room was dead silent. Callista took a breath. And then another. And then said the one thing she hadn't rehearsed. For those of you looking for someone to hate, hate me. Not the people I love. Not the woman who stayed. Not the man who tried to speak. Hate me because I was silent. But not anymore. She stepped back. Just one step. And the silence broke. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. The world erupted. But all Callista could hear was her own heartbeat. And Celine's voice, soft and steady, saying, "I'm here." She didn't fall. She didn't cry. But the moment she stepped off the stage, her body nearly buckled. Celine caught her before she collapsed. No words. Just arms. Just warmth. Just breath. Backstage, chaos swirled. PR team scrambled. Security tightened. Phones rang endlessly. But inside the small, quiet dressing room where Celine had brought her, there was only stillness. Callista sat on the edge of a couch, shoulders slumped, her palms against her knees. "It's done," she whispered. Celine knelt in front of her, resting her hands gently over Callista's. "You did it. I destroyed everything. You freed yourself. Then why do I feel like I can't breathe? Because you just opened your chest to the world. That takes time to close again." Callista looked up at her, eyes red but dry. "Do you still see me the same?" Celine didn't hesitate. "No," Callista flinched. "I see you clearer now," she said softly. "And I've never loved you more." The words hit harder than the applause outside. Callista reached for her, pulled her close, and for a long moment, they just held each other, surrounded by the echoes of a life that no longer existed. But the silence didn't last. A knock on the door. A courier. A letter. Unmarked. No return address. Callista opened it with shaking fingers. One sentence. Written in neat, careful script. There's one more secret you haven't uncovered. No signature. Just an address. Celine read over her shoulder. Amelia? Callista shook her head. This isn't her handwriting. Celine looked at her, a chill passing through the room. Then who? Callista stared at the letter, her heartbeat rising again. I don't know. And outside, the world kept watching. Callista stared at the letter for a long time, her breath shallow, fingers pressed against the page like it might vanish if she blinked. There's one more secret you haven't uncovered. It wasn't Amelia's handwriting. It wasn't her tone. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a door creaking open at the end of a long, dark corridor she thought she'd sealed shut. Celine watched her silently, waiting. It's not from her, Callista said finally. I know, Celine replied. Then who? Callista didn't answer. She couldn't. She needed to see for herself. The address was uptown, an old townhouse tucked between embassies and restored brownstones, the kind of place forgotten by time and guarded by shadows. Callista didn't bring security. She didn't bring fear. She brought Celine. The silence between them on the ride there wasn't heavy. It was focused, steady. They were aligned now in a way they hadn't been in years, united not by survival, but by choice. The door to the townhouse was already ajar. Inside, the air smelled like paper and dust and something familiar Callista couldn't quite name. A woman waited for them in the foyer. Older.
Sharp-eyed. Composed.
She didn't offer a smile. Just a nod. Callista Emery Carrington. Who are you? My name is Meredith Cole. I was your father's attorney. Quietly. Callista's blood ran cold. You sent the letter? I did. Why now? Meredith gestured toward a small sitting room. Because it's time. Celine moved with her, silent, watchful. Meredith opened a file folder and placed it on the table between them. Inside, a birth certificate, an adoption record, a letter. Callista's fingers shook as she lifted the certificate. The name on it wasn't hers, but the date matched. The hospital, the mother's name, Catherine Moreno. No, Callista whispered. It's not possible. Meredith met her eyes. Your father adopted you the day you were born. Privately. Silently. The papers were sealed. Catherine Moreno died in childbirth. Her brother, Alec, wanted to raise you, but your father had leverage. Legal, financial. He took you. He raised you as his own. Callista's heart thundered. You're telling me Alec Moreno was your uncle? So, Amelia is your cousin. Not by blood, but by love. Alec considered you both his. The room tilted slightly. Celine reached for her, grounding her again. He fought for you, Meredith said. But your father buried it. Buried him. And you never knew. Callista sank into the chair, everything inside her unraveling all over again. All this time, all this war, and we were family. He never stopped watching over you, Meredith said softly. Even after everything. That's why he never exposed your father himself. He thought it would destroy you. He hoped one day you'd choose the truth on your own. Callista closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks silently. And Amelia? I don't know what she knows. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Celine knelt beside her. We have to tell her. Callista nodded. Not out of guilt. Out of love. The next day, she met Amelia at the same cafe. No guards. No press. Just the letter. The documents. And a woman holding out her hand in peace. Amelia read the papers without a word. Her lips trembled only once. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes, but no rage. He never told me, she whispered. He protected both of us. In different ways. Callista nodded. And I don't want war anymore. Amelia folded the papers carefully. Neither do I. They stood. And for the first time, they hugged. Not as enemies, but as survivors of the same silence. The world moved on quickly after that. The press cycle shifted. The company dissolved. Investigations began. But Callista no longer watched headlines. She watched Celine, the woman who chose her again and again, even when the foundation cracked, even when everything burned. Weeks later, the two of them stood in the middle of an empty greenhouse on Callista's private estate, abandoned for years, overgrown and wild. "Why here?" Celine asked. Callista smiled softly. "Because nothing grew here for a long time, and I want to change that." Celine stepped closer. "What are we planting?" Callista took her hand, pressed something small into her palm.
A key.
"Whatever we want. Together." And then she kissed her, not with apology, not with fear, but with promise. And the world, finally, was quiet. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.